most people believe lifestyle inflation is about income. It isn't. Some people earn very little and slowly build wealth. Others earn more every year and still feel financially stuck. The difference isn't opportunity. It isn't intelligence. It isn't discipline. It's something far quieter. It's something most people never notice while it is happening. It is the psychological pull that convinces you that every increase in income must be matched by an increase in comfort, status, or lifestyle. And once your brain locks into this pattern, stopping it feels almost impossible. Because lifestyle inflation is not a spending problem. It is an identity problem, an emotional regulation problem, a social survival problem, and most dangerously, it feels completely logical while it is slowly destroying your ability to build wealth. Let's start at the beginning. Lifestyle inflation does not begin when your income increases. It begins when your brain starts attaching comfort to safety. When you were younger, comfort meant security. A better home meant stability. Better food meant survival. Better resources meant protection. Your brain learns something very important very early in life. More comfort equals more safety. And that lesson never leaves. It follows you into adulthood. It follows you into your career. It follows you into every financial decision you make. Now, something interesting happens when your income rises. Your brain does not register it as opportunity. Your brain registers it as permission. Permission to upgrade. Permission to improve comfort, permission to reduce discomfort, permission to signal progress, and this feels natural. Because from a survival perspective, it makes sense. If more resources are available, using them feels responsible. But here is where the trap begins. Your brain is designed to normalize comfort very quickly. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, but in simple terms, it means this. Every upgrade you make stops feeling special faster than you expect. The new phone stops feeling new. The bigger apartment becomes normal. The nicer car becomes invisible. The upgraded lifestyle becomes your baseline. And once something becomes your baseline, losing it feels painful. This is where lifestyle inflation becomes dangerous, because you are no longer upgrading your life. You are protecting your new normal, and protecting comfort is one of the strongest emotional drivers the brain has. The moment your lifestyle increases, your brain recalibrates your definition of enough. What once felt luxurious now feels standard. What once felt exciting now feels expected. What once felt optional now feels necessary. And this is where people start feeling confused, because their income is rising, their lifestyle is improving, but their sense of financial freedom is not increasing. Sometimes it even decreases, because every upgrade silently increases your financial obligations. Your rent increases, your subscriptions increase, your daily spending increases, your expectations increase, and expectations are expensive. They create invisible pressure. Pressure to maintain, pressure to sustain, pressure to avoid losing progress. And the brain interprets losing progress as threat, not inconvenience, not discomfort. Threat. Now something subtle begins to happen. You stop thinking about building wealth, and you start thinking about maintaining comfort. That shift is almost invisible, but it changes everything. Because building wealth requires long-term patience. Maintaining comfort requires immediate consistency. And the brain is always more sensitive to immediate emotional discomfort than future reward. This is why lifestyle inflation feels unstoppable, because stopping it feels like losing something, even when you are not losing anything real. You are losing expectation. You are losing identity. You are losing perceived progress. And the brain reacts to that loss emotionally. Now let's talk about social pressure. Humans are social creatures. We measure progress relative to other people, not in numbers, in signals. Cars, homes, vacations, clothing, technology, experiences. These signals communicate something deeper than wealth. They communicate status, security, belonging, success. And the moment your income increases, your social environment begins adjusting expectations around you. Sometimes openly, sometimes silently. Friends upgrade their lifestyle. Colleagues upgrade their lifestyle. Social media constantly displays upgraded lifestyles. And your brain begins asking a dangerous question. If they are upgrading, why am I not? This question feels harmless, but it triggers comparison. And comparison triggers emotional pressure. Not because you want more things, because you want to feel like you are progressing. The brain equates visible improvement with forward movement, but visible improvement and financial progress are not the same thing. In many cases, they are opposite directions. Now let's talk about dopamine. Every lifestyle upgrade triggers dopamine. Dopamine is not happiness. Dopamine is anticipation. It is the chemical that makes you chase improvement. Buying something new creates excitement. Planning an upgrade creates excitement. Imagining a better lifestyle creates excitement, but dopamine fades quickly, very quickly, which means the emotional reward from upgrades disappears faster than the financial cost. So your brain starts chasing the next upgrade, not because you are greedy, because your brain is trying to recreate the emotional high it just lost. And this creates a loop. Income increases, spending increases, dopamine spikes, adaptation happens, dopamine drops, brain searches for next upgrade. This loop can repeat for decades without awareness, and it explains why people who earn significantly more often do not feel significantly wealthier. Now something even more dangerous happens over time. Your fixed expenses begin expanding, and fixed expenses are psychologically powerful. They create commitment, they create obligation, they create pressure. Because once your life depends on a certain income level, flexibility disappears. You cannot easily reduce your lifestyle. You cannot easily change careers. You cannot easily take risks. You cannot easily step back. And this is where lifestyle inflation turns into lifestyle dependency. And lifestyle dependency creates fear. Fear of losing income, fear of economic instability, fear of making career changes, fear of taking entrepreneurial risks. Ironically, the more comfortable your lifestyle becomes, the more fragile your financial flexibility becomes. And this is why some of the highest earners feel the most trapped, because their lifestyle is expensive to maintain. Now let's talk about identity. Most people do not realize this, but your spending habits are directly connected to how you see yourself. If your identity is tied to visible success, your brain will push you toward visible spending. If your identity is tied to progress, your brain will push you toward growth behavior. Identity is the invisible script controlling financial behavior, and lifestyle inflation rewrites identity quietly. You stop seeing yourself as someone building wealth. You start seeing yourself as someone living success. And living success requires constant reinforcement, new upgrades, new signals, new validation. But validation is expensive, and it never lasts. Now here is the part most financial advice completely ignores. Lifestyle inflation is not broken by discipline. Discipline is temporary. Lifestyle inflation is broken by emotional reprogramming. The people who successfully avoid lifestyle inflation do not constantly fight spending urges. They change how they emotionally interpret income increases. Instead of seeing raises as permission to spend, they see raises as permission to buy freedom. Freedom from work pressure. Freedom from financial fear. Freedom from dependency. And this emotional shift changes behavior automatically, because the brain always protects what it emotionally values most. If comfort is valued most, spending increases. If freedom is valued most, saving and investing increase. Now let's talk about why stopping lifestyle inflation feels painful. Because stopping upgrades creates emotional discomfort. It feels like standing still. It feels like missing out. It feels like falling behind. Even when none of those are true, the brain interprets lack of visible improvement as stagnation. But real wealth grows invisibly, quietly, slowly, without social signals. and this creates a psychological conflict. Visible spending creates immediate social validation. Invisible wealth creates delayed personal freedom. Most people subconsciously choose validation because it is emotionally rewarding in the present. But the people who break lifestyle inflation learn something powerful. They learn to emotionally reward invisible progress. They celebrate increased savings. They celebrate reduced dependency. They celebrate financial stability. They celebrate optionality. And optionality is one of the most powerful emotional rewards wealth can provide. Optionality means you can say no to things you do not want, no to toxic jobs, no to financial pressure, no to fear-based decisions. But optionality is invisible while it is being built, and that invisibility makes it emotionally difficult to prioritize. Now let's talk about how lifestyle inflation quietly accelerates over time. Because upgrades rarely happen in isolation. One upgrade triggers another. New apartment triggers new furniture. New job triggers new wardrobe. New social circle triggers new expectations. New income triggers new habits. And habits are extremely powerful. Once spending habits adjust upward, reversing them feels like regression. And the brain resists regression strongly. Not because it is irrational, because historically regression meant danger. Loss of resources historically meant survival risk. Your brain still carries that survival coding today. Now here is the breakthrough most people never reach. Lifestyle inflation is not solved by budgeting. It is solved by redefining progress. When progress equals comfort, spending rises. When progress equals freedom, wealth rises. The brain always moves toward its emotional definition of success. If success looks like lifestyle, lifestyle grows. If success looks like independence, wealth grows. And once this emotional definition changes, behavior changes naturally. The people who master lifestyle inflation do something very subtle. They allow small lifestyle upgrades, but they deliberately slow them down. They separate income growth from spending growth. They allow income to outpace lifestyle, and over time, that gap becomes wealth, and wealth becomes freedom. And freedom becomes emotional stability. And emotional stability removes the urge to constantly upgrade, because once money stops controlling emotional security, the desire to signal progress weakens dramatically. Lifestyle inflation feels unstoppable until emotional security comes from stability instead of comfort. And when that shift happens, something incredible occurs. You stop chasing upgrades. You start designing your life intentionally. You start using money as a tool instead of a signal. You stop reacting to income increases. You start directing them. And that is when wealth building becomes predictable. Not exciting, not dramatic, not flashy. Predictable. And predictable wealth is the most powerful wealth that exists, because it grows without emotional chaos. It grows without constant decision fatigue. It grows while other people chase comfort and validation. And that is why lifestyle inflation is one of the most dangerous psychological traps in finance. Not because it makes you spend, because it convinces you that spending is progress. And once you understand that illusion, you gain control over one of the most powerful invisible forces shaping your financial future. There is another layer to lifestyle inflation that almost nobody talks about, and it is the layer that makes it feel permanent. Lifestyle inflation does not just change how you spend, it changes how you tolerate discomfort. And discomfort tolerance is one of the strongest predictors of financial success. When your lifestyle improves, your tolerance for inconvenience slowly decreases. Small inconveniences begin to feel unacceptable. Waiting feels frustrating. Budgeting feels restrictive. Delaying gratification feels unnecessary. Making trade-offs feels unfair. Your brain starts believing something dangerous. If I can afford comfort, I should always choose comfort. And once this belief forms, your decision-making changes permanently. You stop asking, is this smart long-term? You start asking, why should I live with discomfort if I don't have to? That sounds reasonable, but wealth is built in environments that feel emotionally uncomfortable. Saving feels restrictive. Investing feels uncertain. Waiting feels slow. Living below your means feels socially awkward, and lifestyle inflation slowly removes your ability to tolerate those emotions. It replaces patience with expectation. It replaces discipline with entitlement, not intentional entitlement, psychological entitlement, the feeling that progress should always feel good. Now something subtle begins happening inside your brain. You stop building resilience, and financial resilience is built through delayed reward. The more comfortable your lifestyle becomes, the harder delayed reward feels, which means the exact emotional muscle required to build wealth becomes weaker. And this is why people often become more financially fragile as they earn more, not less, because emotional fragility increases when comfort becomes the baseline. Now let's talk about another invisible driver. Lifestyle inflation rewires your perception of risk. When your lifestyle expands, your monthly survival cost expands with it. That means your brain begins associating income with survival rather than growth. You no longer work to build wealth, you work to maintain stability, and stability becomes expensive. Suddenly, losing income feels catastrophic. Career risks feel terrifying. Entrepreneurship feels irresponsible. Investing feels dangerous because your lifestyle is no longer flexible. It is fixed. And fixed lifestyles create fixed thinking. People believe they are risk averse because they are careful, but often they are risk averse because their lifestyle has removed their ability to take risks safely. Now here's the irony. The people who appear the most financially successful often have the least financial flexibility. Their income is high. Their spending is high. Their obligations are high. Their emotional dependency on income is high, which means their freedom is often low. Freedom is not measured by income. Freedom is measured by how long you can live without income, and lifestyle inflation slowly reduces that number while giving the illusion of success. Now let's talk about time. Lifestyle inflation steals time silently, because as your spending increases, your required working hours increase. Not always physically, but psychologically. You feel pressure to maintain performance, pressure to maintain income, pressure to avoid financial disruption. Even vacations become stressful because income disruption feels dangerous. And this creates something called golden handcuffs, where your lifestyle is comfortable, but leaving your income source feels impossible. This is where many high earners feel trapped without understanding why. They assume the solution is earning more, but earning more often expands lifestyle further, which expands dependency further, which increases pressure further, and the cycle continues. Now let's talk about emotional validation. Lifestyle inflation is deeply connected to how humans seek validation. Humans want to feel recognized, respected, admired, successful, and lifestyle upgrades are visible. Savings are invisible. Investments are invisible. Financial independence is invisible. And the brain naturally seeks visible reinforcement, because visible reinforcement creates social safety. When other people see your progress, it signals belonging and status, and belonging historically meant survival, which means lifestyle inflation is partially driven by social survival instinct, not materialism. Survival coding. That is why it feels so emotionally strong. Now, something extremely important happens once lifestyle inflation stabilizes. Your brain stops recognizing it as choice. It starts recognizing it as necessity. And necessity is psychologically powerful. People will defend necessities aggressively, even if those necessities were luxuries a few years earlier. This is why reducing lifestyle later feels emotionally painful, because it feels like losing stability, not reducing spending. And that emotional interpretation is what keeps lifestyle inflation locked in place. Now let's talk about comparison again, because comparison does not just drive spending upward, it redefines satisfaction downward. Every time you see someone with more comfort, your brain recalibrates what feels sufficient. Enough keeps moving, and when enough keeps moving, satisfaction becomes unreachable, which creates a permanent feeling of being behind, even when you are objectively progressing. And this is why lifestyle inflation is so emotionally exhausting, because it disconnects progress from satisfaction. You can progress financially, but feel stagnant emotionally. and humans respond more strongly to emotional experience than numerical reality. Now here is something fascinating. The people who successfully resist lifestyle inflation do not resist comfort entirely. They simply slow its growth intentionally. They create a delay between income growth and lifestyle growth, and that delay becomes one of the most powerful wealth-building forces available, because wealth is created in the gap between what you earn and what you spend. The wider the gap, the faster wealth grows. Lifestyle inflation closes that gap automatically. Financial independence opens that gap deliberately. Now, let's talk about identity again, because identity is where lifestyle inflation is truly broken. If you see yourself as someone who deserves visible success, your brain will push spending upward. If you see yourself as someone building invisible strength, your brain will protect long-term progress. Identity determines which emotional rewards your brain prioritizes: status or stability, validation or freedom, comfort or control. And once identity shifts, behavior follows without constant willpower. This is why some people can earn millions and live modestly without feeling deprived, because their emotional reward comes from growth, not display. They feel proud of restraint. They feel satisfied by control. They feel secure through independence. And those emotional rewards replace the dopamine reward of upgrades. Now here is the most dangerous illusion lifestyle inflation creates. It convinces you that upgrading your life is the same as improving your life. But those are not always the same thing. Upgrading increases comfort. Improving increases control, and control creates long-term happiness far more reliably than comfort. Comfort adapts quickly. Control compounds slowly, and compounding always wins over time. Now here's the moment where lifestyle inflation begins weakening. Not when you stop upgrading, but when you stop needing upgrades to feel progress. That shift changes everything. Because once progress becomes internal instead of external, spending loses emotional urgency, saving gains emotional meaning, investing becomes emotionally exciting instead of emotionally stressful, and wealth building becomes sustainable instead of restrictive. Now here's the final hidden layer. Lifestyle inflation is not defeated by removing desire. It is defeated by redirecting desire. Desire is powerful, necessary, human. The goal is not to eliminate it. The goal is to aim it toward freedom instead of comfort, toward control instead of display, toward security instead of validation, toward optionality instead of obligation. Because when desire fuels independence, money stops controlling your decisions. And when money stops controlling your decisions, lifestyle inflation loses its psychological grip entirely. And once that happens, something surprising occurs. You can increase your lifestyle without increasing your dependency. You can enjoy money without needing it emotionally. You can grow income without growing pressure. And that is the moment when money finally becomes what it was always supposed to be: a tool, not an identity, not a signal, not a source of emotional safety, just a tool. And people who reach that stage experience something most people spend their entire lives chasing without understanding: calm, financial calm, the quiet confidence that comfort is optional, but stability is permanent. And once financial calm exists, wealth growth accelerates naturally. Because emotional mistakes disappear, reactive spending disappears, fear-based decisions disappear, and predictable behavior creates predictable wealth.